Hello, good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? So let's quickly confirm we're all on the same page before we get this party started. So if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, kindly type in hi in the comment section so that we can be on the same page and let's get it started. Okay, I want to see confirmations in the chat section. All right, good morning, Carrie. Thank you very much for the confirmation. Good morning, Sergio82. Good morning to you. Good morning, 056. Good morning, Joe72. Hey, Scott Benji. Good morning to you. Glad to have you around. All right, so I think we are good to go here. So let's see how that is. So first of all, I want to welcome you all to yet another promising session on Extreme Speed Live, hosted by my humble self, Sheriff Daramola. As usual, I will be taking you on a trading journey in the next 1 hour, where we shall be evaluating the financial market using technical parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us today. If you have any pair or commodity you want us to look at, feel free to drop it in the comment section and I will try to inculcate it into my plans for today. So without further ado, let's dive into the chart. And the first thing we are going to be doing this morning is to run through the pairs we did yesterday. We want to see how well the pairs are doing, after which we are going to be making a decision on this one. So are we going to be having we're going to be having a follow-up details of them. How are we going to continue to hold a perspective on the pairs of commodity, or are we going to drop them? Are we having new pairs today? We'll definitely see as the test session goes by. So without further ado, let's start off with our usual chart, which is the US oil, and let's see what is happening on the US oil. Well, on the US oil, let's quickly do a replay of what our expectations were yesterday. So yesterday we actually identified this channel. As we can see, price has been caught within a consolidation phase ever since we had that impulsive move to the downside last week. We saw price caught within a consolidation phase right between the $86 area and the $85 area, and you can see we had this scenario as we were looking forward to a signal which is likely going to come in the form of a breakdown of structure. And lo and behold, we had the scenario yesterday. Remember, I told you yesterday, I took advantage of this bearish momentum as price went to as far as the $82 level. And we said, okay, fine, since we had the scenario, I've taken advantage of that move. Are we going to be seeing the market give us another chance? And lo and behold, that happened. We saw price come back to do a retest of structure. So we witnessed a retest of structure yesterday. We saw multiple rejection of that bullish trend line that we identified here yesterday, as price continually rejected that level with the hopes that we're going to be having a trend continuation to the downside. So at this point in time, the trade is not yet triggered. For those who are having a second chance on this one, the trade is not yet triggered, but we are still within that perspective here. So that is what our expectations were yesterday. So for those who were not part of the session yesterday, I would like to scale up into the daily time frame so that we can quickly take a look at an holistic perspective and see how the decision we made yesterday come into existence. So let's scale up into the daily time frame and let's see what is actually happening on the daily time frame and what led us to be thinking of a selling opportunity for this week. Now, moving on to the daily time frame, what is the first thing we observe here on the daily time frame? Of course, obviously, we are on a very strong bullish momentum in the last 2 years, and this is evident after connecting the series of lower highs here to give us this resultant bullish trend line. As you can see, we had a connection of those lower highs, and we had that bullish trend line running since the April of 2020. So now with the current structure we have here, and if we zoom into what has been happening, we can see that the last time price touched the bullish trend line was sometime in December last year, somewhere around here, and it took price to as far as the $129.50 area, after which price was caught within a consolidation phase that led price back into that bullish trend line. And since price tested that bullish trend line in the month of August, we saw multiple rejection of that bullish trend line, giving us a clue that we could be having a possible bullish momentum to the upside. But lo and behold, what happened during the later part of the month of August, through the early days of this month rather, we had the breakdown of that bullish trend line, where price did a retest of structure to give us an inclination of a possible downtrend continuation here. So at this point, we were thinking of selling opportunities after citing that we had a retest of structure last week, and we saw this engulfing bearish candle during the course of last week's trading session to give us a clue into the strength of the sellers at this point in the market. So with the current structure here, the next thing we were able to do is to identify a key level at the $87 mark, and you can see how this key level has been holding price action in the past. We can see if we go to as far as the month of August, we saw how that key level has been a demand zone. We can see, we fast forward into the months, in the mid-month of August, we saw how that area was also holding price action, not until the month of September here, where we witnessed the significant breakdown of that key level. And though price came back up a little bit right above that level, but it was met with stiff resistance by the sellers at the retest of structure, which also pushed price right back below that key level. So with the current information we have here, so we have the key level at its $7 mark that will be guiding our action for this week. We also have that bullish trend line. But when we scale down to the 4 hours time frame, we began to see things more clearly. And on the 4 hours time frame, what we observed on the 4 hours time frame was that prices been caught within a descending channel since the later part of the month of August. And I will show you that with a visual representation. Now, as we can see, we saw how price respected this channel. We saw the new low, and then price came back up to do a respect of the resistant level of the descending channel, which took price right below that key level at the $87 mark, and we had multiple rejection of that area with the hopes that price will likely be respecting that channel one more time in such a way that we'll be having our take profit target somewhere around the support level of the descending channel, which is right between the $78, $77 and $80 area. So that is where our take profit target is going to be in the long term. So let's see what is happening on the 1 hour time frame, as that 1 hour time frame will give us a clue into what is actually happening around the structure and what participants are actually doing in this market since the beginning of the week. So in that regard, we'll scale down to the 1 hour time frame, and on the 1 hour time frame, what did we see? This is the 1 hour time frame here, and what we observed on the 1 hour time frame was that price action started the week right around the $86 level. So we saw, price started the week around the $85 level here, and then came to as far as the $86 area. And what happened afterwards? We saw multiple rejection of that level, which sent price crashing to the downside. And if we look at the structure here, hold on a second. If we look at the structure here, after the consolidation phase, within this consolidation phase here, after price action hits the bottom here at the $85 mark, we saw this consolidation phase, and we're waiting for signals to happen. And if we look at the consolidation phase here, that is between the $86 area and the $85 area, price was caught within the channel. And if we look at this from a technical standpoint, this is looking more like a bearish rectangular pattern. And whenever we cite a bearish rectangular pattern like this, we expect that a signal is likely going to be coming in the form of the breakdown of that structure. So right now, during the yesterday's trading session, we saw the breakdown of that structure, and then we were expecting a second chance at a retest of that structure, where we want to be looking for a trend continuation to the downside. Now, in the last how many hours now? In the last let's say 10 hours thereabout, we can see price has been caught within a consolidation phase right within the 86 and the $85 area, giving us a clue of an indecision that has gripped the market at this point, as participants are actually waiting for a catalyst to give them a clue of a trend continuation. So what we want to be doing, what are we going to be doing during the New York session today? Well, like I told you, I'm already in this trade, though I'm in a loss position right now, but I'm expecting that we could be having a downtrend continuation at right below the $85 level. So I have identified here, that's why I called it a selling opportunity, second chance, right below the $85 mark. So what I'll be looking forward to at this point, if you are not in this trade yet, then we want to be looking for an opportunity to join the sell momentum right below the $85 level. So let's see what's going to be happening afterwards. Let's see how price action is going to play out in the next 24 hours on this one, and we shall come here definitely tomorrow to do a follow-up detail on this commodity. At this point, I would like to pause at this point and let's see if you have any questions. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a word or two in the comment section and let's see if I can be of help in that regard. So I'll be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the chat to see if there are any questions. If there are none, then we move on to the next pair. So let's see what's happening here. Okay. 892, good morning. Harold 78, good morning to you. 233, good morning. All right. Okay. Vera, good morning. Bank 31, good morning. All right, so let's move on to the next pair at this point. So the next pair we are going to be looking at is the US tech as usual. So let's see what is happening on the US tech. So where's the US tech here? All right. So let's quickly do a replay of what our expectations were yesterday. We were caught within this channel. We saw this, we identified this descending channel yesterday, and then we were able to identify a couple of levels that we were supposed to use as our yardstick for the New York session yesterday, and we have it right at the $11,800 level. We had the 11,850 level, then we also have the 11,730. So the first scenario we're actually looking forward to is that if price breaks down this level, then a retest of structure will give us a confirmation to join the decline, but that did not happen. And then the next level what we're looking forward to is price coming back into the $88 area, where we said multiple rejection of this area will give us a signal of a trend continuation to the downside. So that happened. We saw multiple rejection, but we were stopped out in a loss position on this one, as price rejected that level a couple of times. I think 1 2 3 4, so we saw like 4 rejection here. I took advantage of this move right up below the $11,850 area, and what happened afterward, we saw price climb back, help to take us out of that position. So right now on the US tech, we should be in a loss at this point if you are taking advantage of this move right around the $11,850 level. So what did we see in the last 24 hours? Now we saw our price broke out of that channel, giving us a clue of a possible bullish momentum. As we can see, price came back to do a retest of the $12,000 area, and we saw multiple rejection of that level, and there is a likelihood that price might come back to do a retest of this ascending channel to send price going to the upside, but we are not sure if that is going to be during the New York session today. But let's quickly go through the long-term scenario, the long-term perspective of this one. So let's scale up to the higher time frame here, and let's see how we got to this point, after which we will be deliberating on how we intend to trade the US tech during the New York session today. So scaling up to the daily time frame here. So what do we have on the daily time frame? Well, it's obvious that price action has been on the bearish momentum since the beginning of the year. Allow me to connect the series of lower highs here so that we can have that resultant bearish trend line to work with going forward. So we have the structure at this point. So price action. Hold on a second. Let me quickly do this. All right. So we have this scenario here. So after connecting the series of lower highs, here we have this resultant bearish trend line that we will be using to guide our bearish momentum going forward. So what happened in the last couple of months? We saw we saw a reversal pattern as soon as price trended towards the $11,000 area. We saw price evolve into a reversal pattern like a double bottom structure that we can see here. Then we saw the breakout of the neckline, which is the $12,000 mark area. Price retest the structure and we took price right to the upside. And remember, we've been enjoying this move. We've been monitoring this US tech for quite a while now, and we also joined the bearish momentum right below the $13,500 area, right back into the $12,000 area. So during the early days of this month, we saw multiple rejection of the $12,000 area, where we started seeing bullish momentum. We saw momentum from the buyers, which took price right to as far as the $13,000 area, after which we saw this engulfing candle during the course of last week trading session that took price right below the $12,000 area. So price breaking down the $12,000 area changed our perspective on the US tech, as the breakdown of the $12,000 area is a signal that we might be having a momentum shift. And from a technical standpoint like this, whenever we cite a breakdown of structure, we expect that price might likely do a retest of structure to be sending price going to the downside. So this is the information we have here, and we should also take into consideration the $12,000 mark. We can see how strong that $12,000 level has been in the past. If we go to as far as the month of May, we can see how that level has been in the demand niche. At one point in time, we witnessed the breakdown of structure here. Price came back to do a retest where we saw selling momentum. Then we saw a final breakout retest of that level to push price up. And as soon as price came back down again, we saw multiple rejection of that level before we witnessed the breakdown of that structure during the course of last week trading session. So with this information here, you can see how important that key level is. So we want to be using that key level as our guide for this week. So now, to see things more clearly, we were able to scale down to the 4 hours time frame. And what did we see on the 4 hours time frame? So on the 4 hours time frame, the most important thing we saw here on the 4 hours time frame is this impulsive move that happened last week. We saw this impulsive move, though we saw multiple rejection of that key level. Price came up, fell within a descending channel, and took price right below that key level. So we have the scenario here right now, and it appears that this this descending channel is no longer holding price action, as we saw multiple rejection of the $11,730 area, which led into the breakout of that channel. So like I said here, hold on a second, let me show you, let me zoom in to show you what I'm talking about. So we saw multiple rejection of the $11,730 area. We saw it here. We saw the first rejection, we saw the second rejection, looking more like a double bottom structure. And if that is going to be a double bottom structure, then definitely this is going to be turning out to be a reversal pattern that is likely going to be pushing price to the upside on this one. So we have something like this. Hold on a second, let me show you. We have something like this. We have this impulsive move to the downside. As soon as price tested the $11,730 area, we saw price come back to the $11,800 area, which is likely going to be our neckline going forward. And price came back one more time to the $11,730 area, and see what happened here. We started seeing engulfing bullish candle that took price right out of the neckline at the $11,800, though we saw a rejection of the key level here. And when we cite a breakout of a structure like this, that is, we saw the breakout of the structure here. When we cite a breakout of the structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back into the structure, after which we want to be looking forward to reversal patterns here to take advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. So with this information we have here, how do we intend to trade the US tech this week? Sorry, today rather, or this week definitely. So what I want to be doing now is to have a clean chart. So I want to delete this so that we can have a clean chart here. So I think I should still leave this, as this is more or less our double bottom structure here, right within that ascending channel. So we have a double bottom structure. Let's label it so that we can have a visual clarity of what our expectation is going to be like here. Then we also have this temporary bullish trend line, which has been holding price action since the later part of last week. So we have this bullish trend line. So going into the New York session today, we have a couple of parameters that we shall be using to be our guide for today. So the first parameter is the neckline here. So this is going to be serving as our neckline. Remember, when we have a reversal pattern like this, we should definitely have a neckline that we will be using to guide our action. So we had a rejection of that neckline. We saw the breakout of the neckline during the New York session yesterday, and we expect that price is likely going to come back into this neckline area, or probably come back into the bullish trend line here. But the most important thing we want to be looking forward to is a reversal structure on lower time frame. So it could be your double bottom structure, it could be your head and shoulder pattern, it could be your falling wedge, whatever it is. We want to look out for breakout retest of structure on lower time frame to join the rally to the upside. And if price breaks above the $12,000 area, remember this is a major key level we're looking forward to. If price breaks above that level and does a retest, then we could be adding more position to our existing trade. So you can see how situation flipped in the last 24 hours. We were actually looking at a trend continuation to the downside, and right now we have had a change of perspective as we need to flow with the momentum of price action. So right now we're expecting that we are going to be seeing a double bottom structure or a reversal pattern here to join the rally. So it could be right above this trend line or this neckline here to look out for reversal structures to join the rally to the upside. However, even as we are looking forward to that reversal pattern to happen, we need to get ourselves prepared of a possible change in perspective. And if we are going to be expecting a possible change in perspective at this point, then if a breakdown of that bullish trend line happens, that is, price breaks down this temporary bullish trend line here, please we want to be changing our perspective. This is likely going to be a bearish signal. So if price breaks down that level and we cite this scenario, we want to see it as a bearish signal. But remember, we don't want to get too excited, as we want to wait for further confirmation to give us a clue of that momentum, telling us that momentum is valid. So how do we do that? We wait for price action to give us a retest of structure, that is a retest of that bullish trend line, or probably that neckline area which we identified at the $11,850 area. We look out for patterns on lower time frame. It could be a multiple rejection, it could be a reversal pattern. Then we join the decline to the downside with the take profit target right at the support level of this descending channel. So this is what we want to be looking forward to on the US tech. So we have two scenarios we are looking forward to right now. So we have a situation where we're looking out for reversal patterns right above the $11,850 area. We could have something like this to push price to the upside, or if price breaks down that demand zone, then definitely we want to be looking forward to a bearish momentum. As you can see, price is still rallying right below that key level at the $12,000 mark. So this is what we want to be looking forward to on the US tech. If you have any questions regarding what I've just said so far, feel free to drop in a word or two in the comment section, and let's see how I can be of help in that regard. So that is that. Let's see. Okay. 095, good morning to you. How are you doing today? So, in the absence of no question, I guess we have to move on to the next pair. So, what is the next pair we looked at yesterday? Let's see what pair we talked about yesterday afterwards. After the US tech, we talked about we talked about the gold. Well, let's look at the gold quickly. So on the gold, what was our expectation yesterday? We were actually expecting a bullish momentum on the gold yesterday, remember? And price moved accordingly, but price came back to do a retest of that structure. So let's see what happened here. So this is the gold chart. We have the 1 hour time frame here. And remember, we identified this demand zone here yesterday where we identified multiple rejection of that level, giving us a sign that we will be having a bullish continuation. So we had the scenario here. Price came back. We saw the retest of the structure and we saw this move yesterday. Remember, I told you I was in this trade already yesterday, right above the $1,670 level. And when I cited that rejection of that level, we took advantage of that move. Hold on. So I told you that if we cite a rejection of that $1,670, we took advantage of that move and price went to as far as the $1,680 area, where we saw price come back again into our entry zone. So right now we are on break even on the XAUUSD as price is right below the level at the $1,670, where we said right above that level is most appropriate to be taking advantage of any bullish momentum on the XAUUSD. So this is what we have here right now. So we're in break even at this point. So let's see how we got to this point. So looking at it from an holistic perspective, we scale up to the daily time frame. And what do we have on the daily time frame? I think we look at the weekly time frame first, and then we scale down to the daily time frame. So on the weekly time frame, it's obvious that price action has been on a strong bullish momentum since 2016. So we have two bullish trend line here. The first one is the thick dark line you can see on your screen right now, and the second one is a temporary bullish trend line, which I was able to identify after connecting the series of lower highs here to give me that resultant temporary bullish trend line. So now if we zoom in and see what happened here, we can see as soon as price the last time price touched this temporary bullish trend line was 2019 in May to be specific. We saw price move into the supply zone here at around the $2,070 area. Price was caught within a consolidation phase, which took price right back into that temporary bullish trend line, which we identified here. So as soon as price tested that temporary bullish trend line, what did we observe here? We saw a multiple rejection of that level. So we saw the first touch here, price came to $1,800 area. We saw the second touch here, and we cited multiple rejection during the last week trading session. Let's scale down to the daily time frame so that we can have a better perspective of what I'm talking about at this point. So this is the daily time frame now, and this is where I was talking about. We saw multiple rejection of that bullish trend line here. We saw the first one in the month of July. We saw the second one during the later part of the month of August stroke the early days of September, after which we saw the breakdown of the demand zone during the course of last week trading session to give us a bearish signal. So we have a breakout of structure right now. We had the breakout of that demand zone, which has been holding price action for 2 to 3 months now. So, and whenever we cite a breakdown of structure like this, what do we expect? We expect that price is likely going to give us a retest of structure, something like this. It could be a retest of the $1,700 area, or the bullish trend line which was broken, and or probably the resistance point on this level, where we'll be looking out for patterns to join the decline. So from a technical standpoint, that's what we're expecting. We're expecting price to come back into the $1,700 area to look out for selling opportunities. But what is actually happening at this point? So let's see. But before we scale down, let me quickly share with you the other setups I was able to identify here. We have this bearish trend line after connecting the series of lower highs, which started in the month of March this year. As you can see, price has been trending to the lower side, collapsing right back into the bullish trend line, whereby we saw the breakdown of that bullish trend line last week. So is price going to continue to the downside here in the form of a retest of structure right to the downside? That is one scenario. Or is price going to break above that key level at the $1,700 area, where a retest of structure is likely going to be pushing price to the upside? Or are we going to be having an outright trend continuation to the downside from this point? So these are the three parameters we want to the three scenarios we want to be looking at today. So let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame and let's see what is happening on the 1 hour time frame. So scaling down to the 1 hour time frame, what has been happening since the beginning of the week? Now, since the beginning of the week, we have seen our price has been caught within a consolidation phase right between the $1,680 area and the $1,666 area. Sorry, somewhere between $1,666 and $1,660 area. So this is what we have since the beginning of the week. Price has been caught within that consolidation phase. But one thing that we need to take note of is this: since the impulsive move to the downside here, price tested the $1,654 area, rejected it multiple times, pushing price right back into the 1,680. Then we saw this move yesterday. Price came back again to the demand zone, and as you can see, we saw another rejection of that demand zone here. So what does it tell me? It tells me that we have a buying power around this area, as any attempt by the sellers to break through this demand zone was met with stiff resistance. So sellers are trying to break through the $1,650 area, but it's been met with stiff resistance. And we can look at the last time price tested that level. It was a higher low. It didn't break the previous structure which we had here. So one thing I'm seeing here is more or less like a trend continuation to the upside. We have had a higher low, but we are yet to find a higher high at this point. So now going into the New York session today, what structure are we going to be using as our yardstick? Well, the first thing I want to do, since we already have a higher low here, is to connect the series of higher lows here to give us a bullish trend line that should be guiding our actions for this week. So bringing up my line chart at this point so that I can get a specific point of connection, we have a bullish trend line here. So with the bullish trend line identified now, how do we trade the XAUUSD for today? Now, in addition to the bullish trend line we have here, remember we identified this key level at the $1,670 area, and as you can see how that level has been a major determinant of price action in the past. We saw resistant level here after we saw the breakdown of structure, we saw the breakout of the structure, we saw support level, we saw the breakdown again, price came back up, breakout of that level. It later became a support level, and right now we are within that area, and within this area here shares a confluence with that bullish trend line as well. So we want to be using both this bullish trend line and the key level here as our yardstick going into the New York session today. So what are we going to be looking forward to right now? Since we already have a breakout of that key level here yesterday, we saw the breakout, price came back into the levels. So what I'll be saying here is I want to be taking the buy position right above the $1,670 area, and if price continue to go to the upside, I want to be moving my stop loss accordingly. Remember, we are on a short-term bearish, we are on a long-term bearish momentum, and we don't want to get caught within sudden pullbacks that is likely going to be happening here. So if price continues to move to the upside here, kindly move your stop loss to break even to protect your position against any sudden pullback. So if that happens and price continues like that, we see a breakout of that structure, then a retest could welcome an addition to our existing trade. So this is the scenario I'm looking forward to going into the New York session today. And one thing I also observe here, after looking at the structure we have here, let me bring out my line chart. We can see that we have a resistant point of this channel that I was able to cite here, and that could also be a yardstick for us to add more position to our existing trade. So if we cite right above the $1,070 area is an area I told you that we should be buying the gold. And if we cite a breakout of this resistance level of this, that is the trend line here, that's another signal confirming this bullish momentum. And if price comes back to do a retest of structure, it will come back to do a retest of that bearish trend line, or probably the bullish trend line here, where we want to be looking out for patterns on lower time frame to add more position to our existing trade. And if we are going to be buying at this point, where will our take profit target be? Well, remember, we have this key level at the $1,700 level, somewhere around here. So we want to be having our take profit target around the $1,700 level. Why have I said that? Let me scale up to the 4 hours time frame so that I can show you why that is. So remember we had a scenario on the 4 hours time frame where we saw the breakdown of that demand zone, and whenever we cite a breakdown or breakout of a structure like this, we expect that price is going to do a retest of that structure. So what we are doing right now is this: we are going to be seeing it as a retracement move right back into the $1,700 level. We want to see how price is going to relate to this level. So is price going to break out of this level to give us further signal that we are going bullish, or we are going to be having multiple rejection of this level to send price going to the downside? So that is why we are placing our take profit target at the $1,700 level. Let's see how price is going to relate with this level, and if we have a breakout, we plan to join the rally, and if we have a multiple rejection, then we want to be joining the trend continuation to the downside. So this is how we want to be seeing the XAUUSD for this week. However, you know, I always like to give a second perspective so that we can get ourselves prepared if price does something unexpected. So right now we have two parameters guiding our action for this week. Remember, we have this bullish trend line here guiding us for bullish momentum, and we have this resistance points and the $1,680 level as our yardstick going forward. However, if price breaks down this bullish trend line, then we want to be seeing this as a possible bearish signal. And if that happens, remember, we are not getting too excited, as it could be a false one. So we want to be patient enough to wait for price action to give us further confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of the structure. So it could be the retest of that key level at the $1,670 area, or probably the bullish trend line here, where we want to be looking out for patterns on lower time frame that supports a trend continuation, and with a take profit target right within the demand zone here, right below the demand zone here. And if price does a retest of that demand zone, we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. So this is how we intend to look at the XAUUSD for the week. So we still have a bullish momentum, very evident here on the XAUUSD. And in addition to this, I also want to share with you that we have major events that is likely going to be a catalyst for price movement on the XAUUSD, and I was able to spool out this. And one thing I observed was that we have the Fed interest rate decision coming up tomorrow. We have the monetary policy statement also. We have the FOMC economic projection, and also we have the FOMC press conference. So all these events are coming up tomorrow, and these are high priority events, and this is likely going to be what participants in this market are waiting for. So we might probably see a lot of consolidation around this area at this point, so we should get ourselves prepared. But definitely I will be here tomorrow to share with you how we're going to be getting ourselves prepared for those events. So this is how we want to be looking at the XAUUSD at this point in time. And if you have any question regarding what I have just discussed so far, feel free to drop in a word or two in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. So on this note, I'll be moving on to the next pair. So let's see what is happening. And our next pair is the CHFJPY. Now on the CHFJPY, we have been expecting a bearish momentum to happen here, and I was able to identify a counter trend opportunity that we're supposed to take advantage of yesterday. Remember, we had the scenario yesterday where where were we yesterday? We were around this point yesterday. Hold on a second, let me show you where we were at. Okay, we were around this point yesterday, and I told you that we already have a signal we saw our price since the bearish impulsive move to the downside here. Hold on a second. We had this bearish impulsive move. Price was caught within a consolidation phase right between the 148.350 area and the 148.100 level. We saw consolidation phase here, and we were expecting a signal to happen. And what signal happened? We saw the breakout of that structure coupled with multiple rejection of the 148.350 to give us that bullish signal. So if you are taking advantage of that move, kudos to you for being on standby to take advantage of that move. I told you our take profit target should be within the sell window here if you are taking advantage of that counter trend opportunity. So if you are taking advantage of that move, you will definitely be in about 40 pips at this point, or probably you have taken your profit at this point with about 70 pips thereabout. So either of the way, if you are still in this trade, kindly move your stop loss to break even at this point, or probably somewhere below the 148.700 area, as we witnessed the rejection of the sell window. Now, the other scenario we shared yesterday was that considering the fact that we cited a reversal pattern here on the higher time frame, we saw the structure here. Remember, we saw the structure. We saw the first touch at the 150.735. Price came back into our neckline at the 148.700 area. Price came back up to do a second touch, which is a lower high, and then we saw the breakdown of that neckline, giving us a signal of a bearish momentum. And we said we're waiting for price to come within the sell window here, where we'll be looking forward to patterns that will support a trend continuation to the downside. And lo and behold, price is right back within the sell window. So what we are going to be doing today, I will be sharing in a moment, but let's quickly go to the daily time frame, where I want to share with you how we got to this point, especially for those who are not part of the session yesterday. So let's quickly go into the daily time frame. Let's quickly see what our expectations were. Then we go on to talk about how we intend to trade the CHFJPY today. Okay, so right now we're on the daily time frame. Hold on a second. I need to plug in my laptop. All right. Okay. So we're on the daily time frame right now, and you can see what we have here. Price has been on a strong bullish momentum since how long is that? Somewhere around 2017 thereabout. That's like 5 years thereabout on this one. And ever since we saw the breakout of this bullish trend line here, we have seen that price has continued to find higher highs and higher lows. So since the breakout of this bullish trend line happened, we saw our price climb up. We saw the retest, which pushed price right above this area, and we had another bullish trend line here as price continued to respect that bullish trend line going forward. Now, one thing interesting happened between the month of June and the month of September. We saw multiple rejection of the 143.500 area. We saw the first touch here. We see how every time the buyers tried to push price to the upside here, it was met with stiff resistance by the sellers. Not until the early days of this month, we witnessed the significant breakout of that level. And as soon as we saw that breakout, price climb up right into the 150.700 area. So, and from a technical standpoint like this, whenever we cite a breakout of structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back to do a retest of that structure. So for those who had missed this bullish momentum here, that is long-term traders who had missed the bullish momentum here, the breakout of that structure, they will definitely be waiting for price to become a little bit cheaper in the with the intention that price might come back to do a retest of that structure, which also shares a confluence with that bullish trend line here to give us a trend continuation to the upside. So we can see that the structure here also shares a confluence with that bullish trend line, where we want to be looking forward to bullish momentum for bullish opportunity going forward. Now that we've had the scenario here on the daily time frame, we've identified this on the daily time frame, what is the next thing to do? So are we going to be waiting for price to come back into this level before we can trade the CHFJPY, before we can look for that buy opportunities? Is that what we are going to be doing all week? Well, no, that is not what we are going to be doing. what we're going to do now is to look at what is actually happening after the multiple rejection of price of the 150.700 area here. So we can see that price has rejected that place multiple times. So we want to see, is that the beginning of a retracement phase back into the bullish trend line here? So are we going to be having a retracement phase back? That is what we want to be looking at now. So let's scale down to the 4 hours time frame. Now on the 4 hours time frame, what do we have on the 4 hours time frame? Looking at the structure here, we saw the breakout of that supply zone we identified on the daily time frame. Price came to the 150.700 area. We saw the first rejection. We saw multiple rejection of this area. That's why I labeled that area our new supply zone. And then we saw price come back into the 148.700 area. We saw the second touch, which is a higher low. Price was unable to break the previous high, hereby resulting into a double top structure, which from a technical standpoint is a strong reversal pattern. So with the sight of this double top structure here, and with a neckline sitting right at the 148.700 area, we saw the breakdown of that level during the course of last week's trading session. And what have we been saying since then? We have been seeing price do multiple rejection of this area. In fact, yesterday's candle closed in a shooting star setup. So with this scenario here, like I said, we identify this area as an area we want to be looking for selling opportunities going forward. So let's see what is happening on the lower time frame, and let's see if it is time to start selling the CHFJPY. So scaling down to the 1 hour time frame, what do we have? So on the 1 hour time frame, we have seen that price has come to test the sell window here. That's around the 50% retracement of this previous impulse leg. So we have an impulse leg here. We saw price come back to do a retest, come back to the 50% area. And are we going to be seeing a trend continuation to the downside from here? That is a question we want to be asking ourselves. And the New York session today will be answering that question. So we have this move right into the 50% area, and we have been witnessing multiple rejection of this 148.700 area. So I'm of the opinion that we might be having another touch of this area. So if we cite a reversal pattern, which is likely going to be a double top structure, then we might be looking forward to a trend continuation to the downside from there. So now at this point in time, and looking at what is happening on the 1 hour time frame here, I want to see, you can see we have this rejection of the 148.700 area. We have multiple rejection of this area. You can see as soon as price rejected the 50% retracement, we saw price come back into the 148.700 area. Multiple rejection. We had the first one, second one, and we have this candle running at this point, and this candle still has about 9 minutes to close. So let's see how this candle is going to close. Is this candle going to push price to the upside once again in such a way that we have this move right here before we start seeing that move to the downside? Or are we going to be having price come back into somewhere around the 68% retracement or the 78.6% retracement, after which we're going to be seeing a head and shoulder pattern that will be sending price going to the downside. So this is how we want to be looking forward to a sell momentum on the CHFJPY for the New York session today. So what we are going to be doing now is to wait for price to come back again. As we can see, multiple rejection here, and if price does not do that and price breaks down the 148.700 area, then we want to be looking at a retest of that structure to join the decline to the downside. In the meantime, I have my take profit target around the 147.00 area, but remember I told you that we are expecting that the sell momentum could likely come into the supply zone which we identified here. So let's see how price action plays out afterward. I don't want to be too ambitious here, so let's just place it right around, which will be giving me about 200 pips here to catch. So let's see what happens during the New York session on the CHFJPY. If you have any question, feel free to drop a word or two in the comment section. Let's see if I can be of help in that regard. 88307, you're welcome. Farah444 from Portugal, good morning to you. How are you? Paul Tudo, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Good morning to you. Hakushner, how are you? Okay, the next pair we did yesterday is the USDJPY, and I think that is going to be the last pair we are going to be treating today. So let's see what's happening on the USDJPY. Let's quickly run through the USDJPY and see what we have here. So on the USDJPY, I actually took advantage of a bullish momentum here yesterday, and though we were expecting a sell momentum on the CHF on the USDJPY, remember, and the reason why we had that is simply because of this supply zone we had here. We saw multiple rejection of the 145 Japanese yen level to give us a clue of a possible strong sell momentum that could be evolving behind the scenes. However, we identify this bullish trend line on the 1 hour time frame here, as price action has been respecting that bullish trend line in a while. And then we also had the structure, this resistant point of this descent of this, we had this resistant level, this trend line here. So we are looking at that structure as a place we are looking for leverage to give us a signal of a trend continuation to the downside, or probably a bullish momentum. So we were looking forward to, if we are going to be selling the USDJPY, we want to see price break down that neckline here. I told you yesterday, a retest of structure to sell to the downside, but what happened yesterday was interesting. We saw the breakout of that resistant level. We saw the breakout here. Hold on, oh my goodness. All right, so we saw the breakout of that resistant level here, and then price came back to do a retest of structure. So we saw multiple rejection, and I was like, okay, since we have this, let me join this rally to the upside. And lo and behold, price has continued to the upside from here with about how many pips in profit at this point? We have about let's see, about 47 pips in profit at this point in time. And what I did here is to move my stop loss before the beginning of the session. And the reason why I moved my stop loss is simply because of the bearish scenario I found here. So I'm expecting that price might still go to the downside. So I'm just looking at this as a privilege of joining that potential if that happens. So I'm moving my stop loss to break even at this point. And if you taken advantage of that move yesterday, kudos to you for identifying that. And right now, what are we going to be doing during the New York session today? Well, before I do that, let's scale up to the higher time frame, that is the daily time frame. Let's have an holistic perspective of how we got to this point, and also for those who were not part of the session yesterday. So on the daily time frame, what was the thing we saw? What was the structure we saw on the daily time frame? So on the daily time frame, sorry. So on the daily time frame, the first thing we observed on the daily time frame is that price has been on a very strong bullish momentum, and this is evident after connecting the series of lower highs here to give me that resultant bullish trend line. And as you can see, since the beginning of the year, price has consistently respected that bullish trend line. And something interesting happened during the month of July stroke month of August. We saw this impulsive move which took price right back into the trend line here, which evolved into a double bottom structure, which from a technical standpoint is a very strong reversal pattern. So we saw the second touch here, and price broke out of the neckline of this double bottom at the 135 Japanese yen area, and since then price has continued to find higher highs with a culmination at the 145 Japanese yen level. And one thing we will notice here is that since the breakout of that neckline here in the month of August, we have not seen price come back to do a retest of structure. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we cite a breakout of structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back to do a retest of structure, where those who missed this move here will be waiting to join a second phase of a bullish momentum. But since that time, that has not happened, and price has just continued to the high side from this point. So what we want to be doing here is to see what is actually happening around this area. We can see we've been witnessing multiple rejection of this level in the last 2 weeks here. As soon as price gets into the 145 area, we have been seeing that price has consistently rejected that area. thereby resulting into higher lows. Could this be the beginning of a retracement phase back into the bullish trend line or the neckline area here, where we want to be looking for the second wave of a bullish momentum? Well, this is something we want to be looking at. So before we do that, I pulled out a major event that is likely going to be affecting the USDJPY this week, and that is on Wednesday we have the Fed interest rate, we have the Fed monetary policy statement which is coming up, and we have the FOMC also. Then on Thursday we have the Bank of Japan interest rate decision. We have the Bank of Japan monetary policy statement. We also have the Bank of Japan press conference coming up. So these two events coming up between Wednesday and Thursday is likely going to have a major impact on this pair. So that is why we are seeing a consolidation phase right now, giving us a clue into the indecision in this market. We can see price has been juxtaposing right between the 145 and the 142 area. So I'm thinking that we might be having price come back into this area, and if that does not happen, then price might likely be respecting that bullish trend line here to pull price to the upside. So in order to have a better perspective into this, we were able to scale down to the 4 hours time frame, the 4 hours time frame, and let's see what we have on the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, the first thing we did here was to identify this bullish trend line as the bullish trend line right around after price formed this double bottom structure. We saw our price consistently respected that bullish trend line, which led into the breakout of the neckline. We saw price continue to respect that bullish trend line, and right now price has been rejecting that bullish trend line for a while now. So are we going to be having a breakdown of that trend line, or is price going to continue to the upside from here? So that is a question we really want to look into and see what structure we have here to determine if this bullish trend line is either going to hold or we are going to be having a breakdown of that level. Now on the 4 hours time frame here, I was able to identify a couple of parameters that we will be using to guide our action going into the New York session today. Well, the first one is we have a demand zone here. We can see how price has consistently rejected this area, so it gives us a clue of the buying strength at this point. Then we also have another demand zone right above the neckline at the 142.500 area. So why am I having this area as my neckline? Well, if we look at the impulsive move that led into the multiple rejection of the 145 area, we saw when price rejected that level, price came back into the neckline area here where we saw a consolidation phase. Price came back again into that structure. We saw another rejection. Price came back into the 142 area. So I'm thinking this might likely lead into a double top structure, where we will be looking forward to a breakdown of the neckline area to give us a confirmation of a bearish momentum. And if you look at the neckline at the 142.500 area, we can see it also shares a confluence with that bullish trend line we identified. So if we are going to see a breakdown of that neckline, we want to be patient enough to for price to give us a confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of structure, where we're going to be looking for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside. So that was our initial expectation here, that price will break down that bullish trend line. But if price does not choose to break down that bullish trend line and we continue to see price respecting that bullish trend line, then definitely we want to be buying the USDJPY. So like I said, I was able to join that trade yesterday, and if you are joined too, kudos to you for taking advantage of that move. As we saw the breakout of that resistance point, price came back to do multiple rejection of the structure, and we took advantage of that move, and price has continued to the upside here. So in as much as we've had this move here, I'm still expecting that bearish momentum to happen, which is likely going to happen during the FOMC tomorrow. I don't know. We don't know yet, but we just need to monitor price action. So we might be looking for to sell the USDJPY. The only thing that will make me sell the USDJPY is a breakdown of that bullish trend line, which also shares a confluence with the neckline area, where a retest of structure will give me a confirmation to join the decline. So going down to the 1 hour time frame, we have the scenario here We saw the breakout yesterday. Remember, I shared with you, we saw the breakout of that resistant level. Price came back to do multiple rejections. So if you had missed that rejection, I think we had like 8 to 9 rejections here. So during the last 10 hours, you would have actually joined one of this rejection to push price to the upside. So if you are taking advantage of that move, one thing I'll be saying right now is to move your stop loss to break even. Protect your position against any sudden pullback. Remember, I told you this setup we have in here looks more bearish, so we want to be protecting our position against any sudden bearish momentum that is likely to be coming in here. So that is how we want to be holding on to the USDJPY. So for the take profit target on the buy momentum here, we are looking at somewhere around the 144.500 area. As we can see that price has respected this area as a selling niche in the past, and there is a likelihood that price might come back here to do a rejection of that area. Probably after then we might be seeing that breakdown of that bullish trend line. And if we have an outright breakout of that structure here, then we might be looking to add more position for a trend continuation. So let's see what happens during the New York session today. So let's prepare ourselves. If you are taking advantage of that move yesterday, move your stop loss to break even, and let's see what happens afterwards. So on this note, I will be calling it a day. But before I do, let's quickly do a recap of what we have talked about so far, especially for those who had missed out of the early minutes of the session. So the first pair we looked at today is the US oil. And what was our expectation on the US oil? I told you that we had a signal yesterday which I took advantage of. I told you we had this bearish rectangular pattern following this impulsive move. Price was caught with this bearish rectangular pattern. We saw a signal yesterday with a breakout of the trend line, and then price came back to do a retest of structure, which lines up well with our expectation of a bearish momentum on the US oil. So what I'm saying here is that for those who had missed this move yesterday, well, we have another chance to take advantage of this move right below the $85 level, as we will be guiding our action going into the take profit target at the resist support level of the descending channel right around the 78 and the $80 area. So that is that on the US oil. Remember, we have a key level at the $87 mark. Before I go on, we have a key level on the $87 mark, and for me to buy the US oil, I'll definitely have to see price break out of the $87 mark before I can buy. If that does not happen, my sell opportunity still holds here. Now we moved on to talk about the US tech, where we saw a scenario here yesterday. We were expecting price to go to the downside, that is break this $11,730 level, but price did not break it to the downside. And what did we see yesterday? We saw price continue to rally to the upside. So we saw the breakout of this channel, giving us a possible bullish signal at this point. And what we said is that we will be waiting for a retest of structure to happen for us to join the rally. So the retest of structure can come in the form of a double bottom structure right above the $11,850 level, or probably this bullish trend line here, where we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the rally. And if a breakout of the $12,000 mark happens, a retest of structure will be sending price going to the upside on this one. So we are still looking forward to a bullish momentum here. However, if a breakdown of that bullish trend line here happens, remember we have this parameter to guide our action for the New York session today. So if a breakdown of that bullish trend line happen, as in price breaks down, then we want to be looking forward to confirmation in the form of a retest of that trend line or the key level here, after which you look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline. So these are the things we are looking forward to. Remember, we have a reversal pattern here which supported that reversal structure we are looking forward to. We had a double bottom structure here, and we have the $11,850 area as our neckline, which was broken during the later part of the New York session yesterday, and a retest which is already evolving right now. If you want to be buying, you can buy at this point with your stop loss right below the $11,000 $850 level, where we'll be looking for a take profit target somewhere around the 12,200. At least in the meantime, we have a supply niche around this area. So let's see how price plays out in that regard. Then we went on to talk about the XAUUSD and what was our expectation on the XAUUSD. We're expecting a bullish momentum to happen, and remember we have two parameters to guide our action. The first parameter is the key level at the $11,670 area, where I said if we are going to be buying the XAUUSD, we want to buy right above that $11,670 area. And if price finally breaks above this this resistant level of this bearish trend line, price breaks above, that's a signal that bullish momentum is now valid. Then a retest of structure should give us another confirmation to add more position to our existing trade. And I told you that our take profit target should be somewhere around the 1,695 and the $1,700 area. And the reason why that is, I showed you on the 4 hours time frame, is simply because of the key level we were able to identify at that area. Remember, we had the breakdown of that key level during the course of last week trading session. Here we saw the breakdown of that level to give us a clue of a strong selling momentum. And from a technical standpoint like this, whenever we cite a breakdown of a structure like that, we expect that price might likely come back to do a retest of structure to give us a confirmation to join the bearish scenario that has been initiated. So what we are going to do, why our take profit target is here, is simply because we want to see how price is going to relate with this level. Is price going to break out this level to push price to the upside, or are we going to be having a rejection to send price going to the downside? So in that regard, we have our take profit target right around that area. Then I also shared a caveat here. Considering the long-term bearish momentum we have here on the XAUUSD, we cannot ignore the fact that a bearish momentum could actually happen. And the only way we are going to know that is if price breaks down that bullish trend line. Remember, the bullish trend line here is our yardstick for this week. And if at any point in time we cite a breakdown of that bullish trend line, then we want to see that as a momentum shift. And if that happens, remember, we don't want to get too excited. We want to wait for price to give us further confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of that bullish trend line or the structure here at the $1,670 area, or probably the resistance point here, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline. So that is how we want to be looking at the XAUUSD for this week. Then we went on to talk about the CHFJPY. Remember, and we had the scenario we are looking forward to. We had the sell momentum that we are looking forward to, despite the fact that we took advantage of that counter trend yesterday. By now, you have taken your profit on the counter trend opportunity, and if you have not, I told you to move your stop loss to break even or somewhere around below the 148.700. But we are still expecting that bearish momentum to happen after we identify the breakout of the supply niche here on the daily time frame. And this impulsive move resulted into something that looks more like a double top structure, which I said is a strong reversal pattern. And with a breakdown of the neckline here, we expect that a retest of structure will give us further confirmation to join the decline, probably back into that strong bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame. So in order to take advantage of that move, we were able to identify a sell window right within the 50% and the 78.6% of this previous impulse leg here. So we expect that price is coming into within the sell window where we look out for patterns to join the decline. So in order to join that decline, we are expecting price to come within this area, and it appears we have seen a rejection of the 50% area. But one thing happened after the rejection of the 50% area. We saw multiple rejection of the neckline here, giving us a clue that we might be having another bullish momentum, probably going to be a lower high of this previous high to send price breaking down to the downside, or we could be having a situation where price action transposes into a head and shoulder pattern. We could have this high here, the shoulder, right, left shoulder there. We could have a head, price comes back, we have the shoulder, then a breakdown retest of structure to send price going to the downside. So in short, we are looking for selling momentum here. So that is how we want to be trading the CHFJPY. Then we moved on to close the day with the USDJPY, where I told you I took advantage of a bullish momentum yesterday after citing the breakout of that resistance level. We saw multiple rejection here. Then I was able to take advantage of this move to the upside here. And I told you that if you are taking advantage of that move, what you want to be doing at this point is to move your stop loss to break even to protect your position against any sudden pullback, considering the bearish structure we have identified here. Hold on a second. So we have that structure going on like this. So, and I told you, I'm still expecting that bearish momentum to happen on this one, as we have already identified the bullish trend line here and the neckline at the 142.500 area, where I said the only time I'm going to be selling the USDJPY is if I see an outright breakdown of that bullish trend line or the neckline area here at 142.500, after which I will be waiting for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of structure before I join the decline. But if that does not happen, then that means price want to continue to be respecting that bullish trend line going forward. So we continue to look for structures aligning with this bullish trend line to continue with this bullish momentum to the upside. And if at any point in time price breaks out of that supply zone, we want to be looking at a retest of structure to add more position to our existing trade. But at the meantime, our take profit target should be right between the 144.500 area and the 14500 area. And the reason why that is simply because of the structure we have here in the past. We can see how this level has been a major determinant for selling power at this point in time. So there is a likelihood that we will be having reversal patterns that's going to be pushing price to the downside from this area. So let's see how price is going to relate to that level. Are we going to be having rejection of that level, or are we going to be seeing price breakout and retest of that structure to push price to the upside? So on this note, I want to be calling it a day. I hope you had a wonderful moment, and I look forward to seeing you same time tomorrow. So I'm very sure we are well prepared for the New York session, as I was able to relate to you different scenarios that could be coming up on this pair, so we are well equipped to take advantage of any momentum that it might likely come in as price action is being monitored. And remember, do not get too excited when we cite a signal like that. When a signal comes in, it could be an engulfing candle, it could be a bearish or bullish engulfing candle breaking out of the structure. We want to calm down and wait for price to give us a confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of the structure. And if a retest does not happen, please pass the trade. There are tons of opportunities in the financial market that we can actually take advantage of. So on this note, I want to wish you best of luck during the New York session today, and I hope to see you same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, same place, Extreme Speed Live Hub, as we come back here again to evaluate the market, and let's get ourselves prepared for the next New York session. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye bye.